All right, welcome to the new JFK show number 108. Now, we've never had a bigger year in JFK than we have now. We had just a few months ago, Rafael Cruz, and then the next thing you know, we've got a shooting in Dallas. Now, the main issue we have here is, number one, we have a lone gunman. So, gentlemen, what I'd like to do is go through this and talk about the similarities of what the Dallas police officers were experiencing in '63 and what they're experiencing now. Because what I know, there's a bunch of people scratching their head knowing that something really went down here and we're not sure what it is, but they also know they better keep their mouth shut or else they're going to get in trouble, just like Roger Craig did. And so everyone is standing around looking, wondering just what the hell is going on. And one of the other problems is that in the beginning, we had Dallas police, 3 people in custody. They're not cooperating. So they're already interrogating people down at the police station. And then suddenly we're back to a lone gunman. And we've got snipers from elevated positions. The shooter's name is similar to Malcolm X with Johnson. You know, of course, Johnson was involved. So they're really playing the name games big time here. So, anybody want to comment on the 3 in custody turning into a lone gunman?
Say somebody should go interview Joseph Miltier, find out what the game plan was. Yeah, I haven't done a ton of research on the Dallas thing yet, but I found it very curious that you know, day one, all the witnesses report multiple shots from multiple locations. And then the next day, oh, it's a lone gunman. I'm like, well, that makes sense because in Dallas, we all know that if there's ever a shooting in Dallas, it's always a lone gunman type scenario.
Has to be, but we had multiple shooters shooting from on top of the building, underneath the building. And it's just amazing to me that it's close to Dealey Plaza as well. So now when we go to Dealey Plaza, we're going to have 2 locations to go try to figure out what the hell happened over here. And the only problem to me, it looks like there was fake blood in Dallas in 2016 and real blood in 1963. I guess one of the biggest precedents set here is that we took out the shooter with a RoboCop. So now no judge, no jury. Next thing you know, bam, you're blown up to smithereens. You're vaporized, all in the name of protecting us against the terrorists. But who are the terrorists?
Except, Gary, he wasn't vaporized. In fact, we have a photograph of him, and his body is intact. So, no. You know, there's no indication they actually blew him up with a bomb.
I was going to say, I heard one report where somebody said they used a pound of C4 to kill this guy.
Yeah, that would have to take out the building, wouldn't it?
That's ridiculous. Yeah, you would never have a little robot like that with a whole pound of C4 in it.
Just amazing to me.
And he could have seen the robot coming. That thing's very substantial. He could have shot out its tread, fired into the C4, done a dozen other things to disable it.
Mm-hmm. And let's think about this for a minute, that the reason to keep the suspect alive is immense. Number one, they said they had multiple bombs scattered throughout the city, and there were multiple shooters. So the last thing you do is blow them to smithereens or act like you do, because what you do is spin in the robo and you put the man to sleep. You set off a gas where you knock him out, and then you interrogate the man until he tells you where the gunmen are, where the bombs are, who's involved with it. But if you just kill him, then you don't know. And all these people milling around as if it's no big deal, too much for me. So, all right, so y'all be sure to mute your mic if you're not talking. So, all right, so the next thing we have is, it's like JFK. What we have here is the Washington Times. No, I'm sorry, the New York Times. Now, the person that sent this to me, this video was taken. In fact, Don told me about this. This guy received this newspaper at 12 at night. All right, but then it takes 2 hours of distribution. It takes an hour and a half for printing it, and then getting it all in. So once again, just like Fletcher Prouty, we have the newspaper going out too soon with this picture. And what it appears to me that this picture is not of the same day. It's not at the same time.
So was somebody in Christchurch, New Zealand?
I think it was Dr. William Mount who discovered he got his Wall Street Journal at midnight in Seattle and did a timeline work back and concluded that the photograph had to have been published in the paper before the event had taken place.
Absolutely. Once again, now one of the problems we have here is if you take a look. In fact, let me show this other picture first. We have the military guy. Yeah, soldier. Here we go. All right, so when you take a look at this picture here, if you see on the end, when you're firing blanks, and Dr. Fester being a military fellow would probably know this better, but you have this orange thing on the end of the gun when you're firing blanks, all right? So the next thing you know, we're looking at these cops, and they appear to have these orange pieces right here, okay? Now, being from New Orleans, we have a lot of movies. In fact, they have just as many movies filmed in New Orleans as in Hollywood. So we're called Hollywood South. And I was downtown and they were filming a series, a drama, and I noticed when they were sticking their guns out the window, they were orange. You know, to make sure that people don't think you're a real nut with a real gun. So they have an orange gun. Now, if you look on the back of the third officer here, it looks like he's got an orange gun. Okay, so I can't verify that 1,000%, but you can see the holding the gun, and then there's the orange.
Of course you can, Gary. The colors are right there. There's an orange tip of the rifle on the left. There's an orange something on the handgun in the middle, the other, and then there's an orange handgun by the officer to his right that's on his back.
Yes.
It's easy to verify. It's right there. The color is right there, unmistakable.
All right, and then if we look again, we'll notice that the patches, there's another picture that has all of, I think it's this one. At least they have the whole picture. If you look at these men here, the patches don't match up, just like in Dealey Plaza, where we had different patches on different people, and some had or we had patches on people that shouldn't have them. So that's just another one right there. So, any comment on that?
Okay, so to me, it's all very strange where if we have multiple shooters and we have cops firing blanks, so what's really going on? So these alleged shooters, that must have all been fake. So has anybody tracked down what actually happened to these cops that got shot?
From my understanding, they're Photoshop cops. Now, in fact, so the pictures that I've seen have been looked into and blown up, and you actually see sometimes when someone's on green screen, you can actually see the wood or the colors behind them bleed into their face. So at least one of the cops is a Photoshop cop, and they probably all are, since we know that these are drills and they are not really killing people. In fact, if you look in this picture to the right, they're using Hollywood sparks. If you look to the right, there's sparks going off. And so as they're shooting these blanks, they're Hollywood things, and they're like little paintballs, except they have dust in them. So when you shoot them, cement doesn't actually puff up like dust does, like it does in the movies. It actually just kind of breaks and falls off. And then if you look to the right, like I said, we've got sparks going off during the entire shooting event. So, all right.
So this whole thing was, okay, just, as a background here before we even, I suppose before we microanalyze, what actually happened, but, to set the stage, this was a Black Lives Matter protest. And these people were bussed in and paid to show up and protest. Paid by, the usual suspects, Soros, Rockefeller, the Jews.
George Soros, yes,
Yep.
Mr. Israeli Firster. I have a new saying. You have to be careful with the words. They're called Israeli Firsters. Instead of 9/11 truthers, they're actually Israeli Firsters, and they're the enemy, and that's what we really have to get to. They're the first.
Just Israel firsters, Gary.
Yeah, Israel Firsters. So that's what we're dealing with. Now, Larry, I talked to you on the phone. Now, what all were they talking about that you were hearing that was reminiscent of 1963 as opposed to 2016? We were talking on the phone, and you were telling me that all the different similarities from the 53 years to now.
Well, there are many similarities, but there are also a lot of dissimilarities. For example, the first thing that comes to mind is the composition of the Dallas Police Department. In 1963, 100% of the Dallas Police Department was white. And among these police department members were a lot of John Birch Society guys, KKK types, white supremacists, and that type of thing. Chief Jesse Curry was the head of the department at that time, and now we have a black chief of the department, and so you have a totally different mix of racial profile in the Dallas Police Department compared to 1963. Okay, now another thing that I noticed that when we contrast 1963 to 2016 is, like you mentioned before, certainly the terms are very similar. Okay, and at first, the very first reports that came out, like Don mentioned, were multiple shooters. And that morning at 5 a.m. when I woke up, they said multiple snipers, plural, so, and then all of a sudden it started to evolve, into the lone nut situation where, we've seen that one, before, in 1963. And then it starts evolving into the Patsy sort of situation. So there are many similarities, and certainly we have to study this.
Yeah. Can you explain to me how we have 3 people in custody who are not cooperating, and then we boil down to a lone gunman? Just as
even supposedly there was a woman who was a very a person of interest at the time, immediately following when this event started to take place. So you have maybe it's like Don said, the usual suspects, or something like that. So yeah.
Got it. Don?
Okay, yeah, I was, we were comparing Dallas between 1963 and 2015. Well, Dallas is now a largely non-white city. It says officially 50% of the city is white.
And you've had a black mayor. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 40% is Hispanic or Latino, 24% black, some other race 18%, Asian 2%. 2 or more races, 2%, American Indian below 1%, Native Hawaiian below 1%. So it's mostly white.
What do you think it was in 1963?
Oh, I have to go back. I would imagine it was. See, that was before the 1965 Immigration Act, so I would probably guess Dallas was probably 90% white.
That's right, and the same as many urban cities, where the white population has moved out into the suburbs and left the inner city to the minorities. Same as many other cities like Detroit, for example, comes to mind. And so Dallas is no different in that regard.
All right, if we go back to the backyard photographs for Life magazine, remember we have Lee Oswald, right? And if you remember, one of the main problems with their photograph that he was leaning off of the weight-bearing axis to where in real life he would fall down. Is that right? You remember that?
Right.
Okay, well, let's take a look. Here we go in the new day. Now, let's take a look at these cops here. In fact, I have another picture there. Let me see. Moment of truth. You can really see these guys. All right, now, somebody tell me how they're standing up. And this woman has come up and blown them away on the streets, Baton Rouge. It's just amazing how we're just being psyop, and it really makes me angry. It's in my hometown.
Yeah, me and some of my friends are talking about this. This is this is basically an outrageous photo. It's worship of these Black Lives protesters. Are really, basically the bottom of the barrel. They're showing up for a paycheck, and the media's pushing this stuff. So again, we know who's behind all this stuff. This is the. This is the larger part of this is they're trying to kick off the race war.
Yeah, well, that's what Rudy Giuliani was very vocal about this, precisely what you're talking about, Don.
Because the usual suspects, the Jews, they do have a war on white people. Now, most white people deny that this war is going on, but whether you deny it or accept it, it's going on nonetheless. And that's what these Black Lives protesters are all about: is destroying white America. That's what the goal of that organization.
Well, we briefly mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. Jim and I we were mentioning about the Charles Manson affair, in case where he wanted to bring about this war, by killing white people in the suburbs, and then he would hide away, with his select few people, and wait until the race war was over to come out and rule, the planet. So that's,
his theory was that whites were smarter, but blacks were stronger, so that if he could precipitate a race war, the blacks would triumph over the whites, but that they wouldn't be smart enough to govern themselves, so he would emerge from the hills and offer his leadership over the new world order.
Wow.
See, and actually, though, that Manson had it, he was a bit egotistic. That is actually the Kalergi plan.
With LSD, at the center of all this.
Yeah, like Charles Manson's not going to pull that off, but the high-end Jews, that is their goal, is to blend the white race out of existence. They want to rule over a race of mud people. And
so in 50 years in Dallas, Texas, we've gone from 90 to about 50.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing now. Especially under the Obama administration, the invasion from the South has just been, it's been catastrophic. The ethnic cleansing. It's the ethnic cleansing of the white population of the United States. That's what's going on.
I wanted to back up a little bit. When you guys mentioned the C4, I saw this demonstration on the effects of C4 with, a sample of a pound, what it would do, with a cinder block wall, and rebar, supporting it, and the devastating effects that this would have had, going where the people that were watching the demonstration were at one football field away. Okay, and the effects of this explosion, which they showed, what 1 pound of C4 looked like, and what that type of explosion would have done. And like Jim was just mentioning, how stupid, that the concept of him, not noticing, that type of a device, getting close enough to do that. And Jim sent us a photograph of him, Micah Johnson, laying there, among the rubble, and very curious that I noticed, that the rifle strap was covering his eyes. Okay, and And so, you know, that's sort of like was a red herring right there. I didn't understand why, you know, they would, if they were really wanted to identify him, you know, they should have just, you know, showed him, you know, with his face, you know, intact, you know, and that type of thing. So that was kind of strange, you know, in my mind.
You know, Larry, you were hoping that with my running it that we'd get continuous coverage, but I don't know. It must be a function of browsers. But I'm being told we're going to be interrupted in just a few minutes, so we're going to have
What I think it is, when you first download it, you get a free trial, and then after a while, then they do the 40-minute thing. I think that's what it is.
Gary, I'd already upgraded so that I got the continuous, but for some reason they're asking me to do it again, which of course I'm disinclined to do. So I'll just let you know how much time we have left. But
we got 8 minutes left. All right. So, all right, the next thing we have is a manifesto. Just can't have a mass killer without telling you everything that happened with the manifesto. So I guess this is the equivalent to Oswald holding up the newspapers.
No, Oswald's diary.
Yeah, Irish diary. There you go. There you go. So we just have the same thing over and over and over again. And going back, come to find out that some of these acting jobs actually pay pretty well. We've got salary of $1,000 a day here in this Denver, Colorado location. That's pretty doggone good, if you ask me.
The recruitment, that's coming from Canada, Gary. You're getting your nations mixed. This was from Canada.
Right, but the location is in.
They're going to do their thing in Colorado, but you see the audition date, downtown Canada. This came from a Canadian website. I was sent it.
Right, but it says the details that the location will be in Colorado.
Yeah, I know.
But they're recruiting Canadian actors. You know.
Downtown Toronto,
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty wild. So I guess the whole goal of all this is civil war. But the only problem is everybody's on their cell phone. They don't have time to go down to the state capitol and confront men with full riot gear, full battle gear, tasers, machine guns, drones going overhead. See, nobody's going to the state capitol. But every day this week, all I see, is militarized police on the front page of the Times-Picayune, run by Skull and Bones since 1836. Not one editor has ever worked for the Times-Picayune. There was not a graduate from Yale, and that's Skull and Bones tapped members. So.
Gary, that's very interesting what you mentioned about the drones. You know, in this day and age, you know, with how prevalent drones are, you would have thought that maybe, you know, how long was that standoff? What, 8 hours, something like that? You know, that they would have employed drones, you know, to find out exactly where the shooters were. You know, and so that's a very interesting point that you bring up there.
Right. Oh man. What are you thinking about all this, Don?
Well, I think this summer is going to be, you know, as they say, a very hot one. I think, you know, this weekend they've got a bunch of more protests lined up.
And the conventions haven't even rolled up yet.
Oh no, the Republican and the Democratic convention. I think especially that Republican one. What I'm hearing is that they're going to do everything they possibly can to shut down Trump. You can't abide by a Trump presidency. Unacceptable. So I think that's where a lot of this is coming from now. There is some other, you know, things at work besides just Trump, but you know, Trump is getting in their way, so they're going to steamroll him. If they can't get a regular conservative like a Ted Cruz or a you know, one of those other chumps in there, they're going to take out Trump. You know, they've already his campaign contributions are down to nothing, and he's dropping in the polls a bit. And now they're going to come after him on the street. You Trump has not run a major political campaign before. I've heard that his, the ground game may not be up to snuff. So I guess we're gonna.
Well, our buddy Chance has always been saying it's Hillary, no doubt. The rest of the stage, I hope to God that's not the case. I really do. But the crisis actors Craigslist ad has already gone out for the Republican National Convention, and there are for crisis actors right in the middle of the convention, in the city of the convention. So it's getting worse and worse, as we continue on. All right, so I'd like to see if I can play this video real quick. All right, this is just laughing people as usual.
Can you go full screen?
Good morning. It's good to see you and know that you're okay, but I wonder, given everything you've witnessed, how you're feeling this morning, how you're doing.
Tired?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're glad to be safe, a little bit tired, but no worse for the wear. Can you tell us what you saw, what you experienced last night?
Man, can we get just one decent actor? Just one? The guy sitting there saying, I experienced a lot of fear, and it's just too much. So, got one more here. Well, actually, not that one. Hold on. Here we go.
No audio, Gary.
Okay, I'll fix that. But just kind of take a look at them. Look, we've got this flag guy in the background, just like Christopher Hansen. Of course, you can't have a fake protest without the American flag. Now watch these people start laughing. Now watch these guys behind them.
You don't even need to hear the sound. I mean,
it's probably better without the sound.
It is actually. I mean, the only one that you could tell the lady in front there, she must be an experienced actress.
Yeah.
She seemed to pull the role off. Everyone in back there was having a hard time keeping a straight face.
Yeah. Now look at this wild-eyed guy to the left.
Yeah, these guys are a couple of chumps.
Look at this dude. Got the baseball bat.
Well, he looks scary on TV, and I think that's what.
Yeah.
That's the effect they're going for.
He said it was raining and they were spitting on him. Just hang on.
Well, it looks like it's about time for our break here, guys.
Yeah.
The end of this. It'll correspond with the end of this video.